Dragonflight's days are literally numbered with the War Within launch date announced. Meanwhile, Mr. Pandaria Remix just launched this week. Yeah, you heard that. Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, your bit of weekend gaslighting. You can support the channel by hitting the like button, subscribing for more coverage, and catch me live in the mornings on Twitch. So no, the MoP Remix did not just start this week, but in a way, it kind of remade itself. That's thanks to a huge buff to bronze and stat threads that are given out from bronze caches of all sorts, daily group quests, and first clears of the day. And as a bit of icing on top, there's a massive increase to earning Xiaohao rep on the Timeless Isle. What this means is that on a given day, one can complete what I call the 7 things, which are the 3 group daily quests for scenarios, dungeons, and raids, and the first clear bonuses for dungeons and scenarios. It's not a huge ask, it's something like, what, an hour or so of your time, depending on your gear, and you're gonna score yourself somewhere like, I don't know, like 20,000 or so bronze. That puts huge dents into the collection quest, and it puts players in a position where it wouldn't be so bad to start pushing item level, so those folks can start clearing stuff even faster and not worry about getting blasted if they were to try out heroic raids or higher. All that's left are collecting what isn't available via bronze, the many weapon appearances that are scattered throughout group content. And now that we're a month into the remix, the landscape, it already feels very, very different from the very beginning. A high percentage of your runs might include someone who's like stupidly geared, and my advice, if you run into someone like that and they're like showing off how fast they are, just let them do their thing and wait for the dungeon to clear and then move on. I mean, you're gonna probably miss out on maybe some of the bronze, but the threads and the loot, that stuff is going to go straight to your mailbox if you don't loot it. The new buffs more than make up for it, and so I'm going to have a version 3 guide of cruising through the remix. Stay tuned for that on Monday. But how are you taking this? Like, does it matter because you farmed everything up or you got burned out, or is now the time to jump in? Or are you going to wait and see for the final 30 days of the remix when maybe bronze just starts raining from the sky, or maybe weapon arsenals will finally become available? It might be a bit of a pain because of the pre-patch happening at around the same time, but I'd love to hear your plans. This coming Monday, the PTR is expected to open up, with the primary purpose being to test out the big Warband conversion, where all the info from our accounts is going to be dumped into this, this big account-wide system. Right now, what you can do is log on to the PTR and just start copying characters. Then on Monday, we'll just kind of see what happens. Today, I do want to clarify a few of the bullet points because I'm seeing more than a few comments with some wrong information. So here goes. Your Warband includes all characters on your Battle.net account, minus characters from like the classic era, the Season of Discovery, Hardcore, that sort of stuff. There is no question of who should I include in my Warband. It's going to be everyone. What we see here in the login screen is just a fun visual representation of your favorite characters all just hanging out together. But there aren't any special benefits shared by your Fab 4, your other characters aren't treated any less. Many but not all currencies are going to be freely tradable across your account, so when it comes to Time Warp badges, sure, you can trade them around, no problem. But Transmute Alchemists in the War Within, they're going to be working with this weird transmutagen stuff, and those aren't warbound, otherwise we'd open up tons of room for exploits. The same goes for crests and flight stones, and the idea is they don't want to create a situation where having an alt army gives you an advantage that other players don't have on like a single character. As for currency sharing, here's how it works. From the currency tab, you can select your desired currency and then hit this button here to initiate a transfer. It's actually less of a transfer and more like you can start sucking away all the currencies from other characters on your account. So what you do here is select a character, you punch in the value that you want to get, and extract. It's a much faster process than switching from one character to the next. Now lots of folks were or are expecting warbands to mean that the currencies are very simply shared, as in they all get dumped into a bucket as soon as you collect it, and then you can tap into this currency across any character, kind of like Trader's Tender, and much like what we see in the modern Diablo games. Unfortunately, warbands won't work that way, and I've been guessing the reasons are related to security and stability. The clue came from the dev's initial announcement. If someone has multiple WoW accounts, they're not going to be able to access the warbank on more than one character simultaneously. Only the first character logged in can do stuff with it, and any other characters have to wait until that first character logs off. Those of us who do pet battles will have noticed this from like many years back. So yeah, we can say that the multi-boxes ruined the game again, but personally I don't think that this is the end of the world, and I wouldn't want the solution to be no more multi-boxing at all. I mean, how am I going to power level all my remix characters without it? This week, John Hight, a senior VP of Blizzard and general manager of the Warcraft franchise, announced his departure in a series of tweets. Kind of like Jalen Brack, Hight started off as a producer before moving up to an executive kind of role. Some would claim that between him and fellow producer and VP Holly Longdale, that they steered the ship amidst the rockiness of Shadowlands and the Blizzard lawsuits and brought us not just Dragonflight and the new classic offerings, but this more aggressive flow of WoW content overall. With him leaving for what I'm going to guess is a more hands-on role in making games, when I ask myself who's going to be running WoW in the future, I can only come up with a very short list in my head. There could be a power vacuum where Holly Longdale will take over as WoW's final boss, unless Microsoft steps in. So far, Holly's proven to be a good face of the franchise and a natural choice of who takes over. Meanwhile, Chris Metzen has been the opposite. He's been staying out of the spotlight, but hey, he could get the top spot too. And we shouldn't count this out, but Ian Hazzikostas has been at Blizzard for a pretty long time and is WoW's longest running game director. Like it or not, he can boast a lot of accomplishments and he might have some grander ambitions. Meanwhile, Morgan Day and Jeremy Fiesel could be co-game directors. Maybe they'll have a spot open for associate game director So just kidding. Usually I don't take too much stock in a big suit making a departure. It's the folks below them who really make the sausage, but Holly and John did do a lot of standing in front of the audience, in front of gamers, owning these roadmaps and plans for the future. Responses to John's departure were also pretty much all full of positivity and well wishes, so it sounds like, yeah, that we're losing one of the good ones, but the franchise is being left in good hands. At least that's kind of how we feel, but what do you think? With the pre-patch PTR on its way and a release date announced, we've also got to take a look at this mini roadmap of the War Within launch, and I'm going to drop some additional facts. We're currently in the beta, and the guesstimation is that the pre-patch of the expansion will launch in the mid to July timeframe. Crazy people like me who want to farm Transmog ahead of time may want to consider when to start their mass farming and hoarding legacy appearances in the mailbox so they can unlock oodles of Transmog for every class day 1 of the pre-patch. Okay, probably maybe day 2, because it's probably going to be all sorts of f***ed up. In 2 months, August 19th at 4 p.m. Pacific, it marks the end of the remix, and hopefully by the reset the next day, those characters can be moved to live servers and can grab all the Warband equipment that we've been saving up for them during the pre-patch event, which has already been underway. Just a few days later, on Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, the War Within launches its early access period, where players can get a head start on leveling and presumably rep farming by wiping out rares and clearing every side quest and gathering materials to sell at ridiculous prices. But we shouldn't expect situations where early access players can be like impossibly ahead of players because of like daily cooldowns or endgame stuff, which again shouldn't be accessible. After a weekend of people buying gamer fuel, the following Monday will be like this mass vacation and sick day event, as well as launch day for general audiences, when we're going to see lots of exposure and promotions and more. Just like in Dragonflight, we're going to have a 2-week preseason, during which we'll get access to zone and outdoor content, the 11.0 campaign, or at least, as much as they're willing to give us, with battlegrounds and normal and heroic dungeons, and that's it. I think this period is going to be an important kind of culture shock, or a realignment of expectations for a lot of players who are disappointed over how, quote, difficult the likes of Heroics and Mythic Zeros have become. Now, they definitely are more difficult, but the way I see it, this difficulty is just playing catch-up to the upgrade system, which has been a total game changer. We're experiencing an expansion launch with this in place for the first time, so in a few short months, it's gonna seem kind of odd for me to put out a guide where I tell people to slam normals and then try to do a round of heroics each day. Like, we're not used to that, but it's gonna help. And I'd like to think that this more gradual flow of going from normals to heroics to mythics and somewhere in their delves will result in players subconsciously learning layouts and mob behavior and encounter mechanics before it becomes second nature. It's impossible to fully predict what gamers will do though, so we'll just have to wait and see. After 2 weeks, the season begins with Heroic Week, when we should expect the normal and heroic raids to open up, Mythic Zeros and higher level delves will be available, and by this time we're setting up our epic crafting. We'll have a Catalyst charge available, and the flow is going to feel pretty similar to what we've had in recent seasons. Mythic and the first wing of Raid Finder will follow that, and sometime around the 11.05 patch, the final wing will be open, as well as the story mode version of the raid, featuring a single encounter that mostly gets players up to speed with what's going on. And not long after that, it's going to be the celebration of 20 20 years of WoW, 30 years of Warcraft, and the official announcement of player housing. But yeah, let's come back home. Okay, that wasn't even an intended, but anyway, this period that we've been in right now that we're back here, it's gonna feel the slowest. It's the lull, after all. Behind the plunder storms and the remixes is the final raid that we have been seeing for the past, like 7 or so months in what is going to be an 18-month long expansion. So I have a question for you folks as we wrap up today's show. What did you think of the Dragonflight formula? It sort of feels like it's been a long time since I was grinding away at the initial renown to get profession recipes, but also Season 4 had me revisit these places, so I'm kind of thrown off. Do you think this expansion was too short? Was there not enough or even too much story told in the wrong places? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and let's of course give a big thanks to our friends over on Twitch and to Patreon, and thanks to you, the Algorithm Squad. Y'all are great for making it to the end. Now all you gotta do is like this video, subscribe for more, and catch me live in the mornings on Twitch. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.